Ready to take your favorite WagerTalk handicappers wherever you travel this football season? The WagerTalk TV app is now live for phones, tablets, smart TVs, and streaming platforms. Tune into your favorite shows like WagerTalk Today, Bet on It, and the Opening Line Report. Plus, browse through our extensive library of sports betting tips. Create your personal playlist of betting tip videos to help you prepare for the upcoming season, and set notifications to alert you when new content is added. Download the app for Apple, Android, Amazon, and Roku devices by searching for WagerTalk TV, or scan the QR code on your screen to join the winning conversation today.
Welcome, everyone, to Inside the Distance. I am Andy Lang from WagerTalk.com. Joining me, as always, Kyle Anthony from WagerTalk.com and Matt Kowalis from SportsMemo.com. We are going to break down UFC Fight Night, Rodriguez versus Lemos. We're going to go over the main event in that, as well as all of our fights that we're excited to watch and bet on. We got your parlay buster. We got your fight that may or may not go the distance. And then we've got a heads up and money line fight. It's going to be minus 200 or better. And a little birdie told me we may be rolling with an underdog on that one this week. So, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. Kyle, you have a 4% pack up at WagerTalk.com. Matt, you've got your play of the week up at SportsMemo.com. We've got a couple more plays that'll be added to that probably when we look at weigh-ins. I've got one play this week. I'm going all in on one play. Before we can predict the future, guys, we got to learn from the past. So let's take a trip to the classroom. Me and Kyle are finally healthy, so we're allowed back into the classroom. Kyle, coming to you first. Boy, I know what you're going to talk about, and it bites us once again. And I feel like if a fighter is going to get injured, Kyle, you 90% chance you bet on him. So
there's maybe 97%. I think it's a little higher than. There is one thing that I have learned absolutely is that random injuries suck in MMA. They're not fun. We don't want them. It's not like, hey, you can't cap for it. You can't really say, hey, maybe this guy's, although TJ Dillashaw, that's a whole nother story there. But, there are certain things that you can look at. But with that being said, there's different types of injuries in MMA during a fight. There's the random ones, right? There's the random ones. We have, again, I was on them. We had Brian Ortega versus Yair Rodriguez. That one didn't really pan out for me there. Also, Curtis Blades versus Tom Aspinall. I was on Aspinall. I mean, these kind of things do happen, but those are fluky things where you do see, same thing with Cater. Cater, did a jump, landed weird, end of story there. But one of the other ones that did happen was Roman Dolidze versus Haas. Now, that one was actually caused by the other fighter. He was in there, he was grappling, because I heard some people like, oh, well, the same thing happened. It absolutely did not happen that way. It was definitely Dolidze going in there, hunting for submission, hunting for positional on the ground, ended up popping out his leg. Probably, I would honestly say that Haas probably wished by the end of that he did tap out, because he got absolutely sparked out by the end of it. But with that being said, honestly, 2 cents on the main event right now also is that I was on Cater, and I thought Cater, the boxing would be there. I thought he'd kind of be at range. But I got to say, Allen looked great. I mean, the lateral movement really threw him off. I knew that it was going to be there and maybe an issue. But right away, that first round, I mean, he would just pivot to the side, throw a big shot, pivot to the side, throw a big shot. So he looked good in that movement. So, again, it's an unfortunate thing. But I got to say that Allen was looking very good in that first round. But injuries suck. Yeah.
Kyle, I have always said that I think I would make one of the most amazing cornermen in all of UFC. It drives me nuts seeing these corner guys that don't know what they're doing. One thing I would do, the second I see something like that happen to Hawes or to Cater, I want the fight stopped. What good is going to come out of that? Why would you let Cater keep going? He just did more trauma to his knee. He's already going to need surgery. Now, instead of a torn ACL, maybe it's ACL and PCL or ACL. I mean, he wasn't going to win that fight. I get being tough, and I get that it's the UFC and you want to show it, but I don't know, man. Sometimes I don't know. It just hurts when
look
you
how
were.
Ball's got knocked out. I mean, the guy took way more. I mean, even to that, even way more damage than he should have. And his corner. I mean, maybe they didn't know. I guess there's some of that stuff, but still, you're right. I mean, the corner guy's got to be like, listen, these are young guys. Let's live to see another day.
Yeah, absolutely. Matt, you're going to talk about power fighters. This is a trend that is becoming very noticeable as the judging in UFC continues to evolve. What did you learn from this, and what can we take away moving forward when looking at betting on power fighters?
Yeah, in all honesty, I am definitely going to start playing that as a factor going forward because, I mean, for one, we talked about the Petr Yan and Sugar Sean O'Malley fight, which a lot of people pointed to Yan. But again, Sugar Sean O'Malley, it appeared like he had the more significant strikes, the more power strikes. And then when the other one that I want to talk about is Dustin Jacoby and Khalil Roundtree. You know, when that fight was going on, I honestly thought Jacoby was doing his job. I thought he was picking him apart, keeping at distance. Yes, Khalil Roundtree landed some good shots and definitely had probably the more significant shots and the harder shots throughout the fight. But when you go back and look at significant strikes, it was 122 to Jacoby to 88 to Roundtree. And I thought it was pretty even throughout the rounds. I didn't think there was one round in particular that was like crazy towards Roundtree or Jacoby. Again, though, you know, going back to those strikes, Roundtree did land the more significant strikes. And Jacoby was one of my plays. It was to the point where once the fight ended, I was like, all right, cool. I washed my hands of it. I had somewhere to go. I got in the car, started leaving, pulled it up on Google, and saw that Roundtree won. And it was honestly like one of those moments, too, where I was so shocked I hit the brakes and my dog, like, flew up to the dash. I was like, holy shit, how the hell did he win? So, yeah, going forward, though, I just got to start playing this as a factor because for the judges, it's going to be a louder, more significant pop when that happens. And I think that plays a factor into their heads a little more. And when you're watching someone like Dustin Jacoby, is he doing a ton of damage? No, he's really not. But going forward, gauging these fighters, I'm going to tend to lean more to the power guys because they're going to do more damage. They're going to have the more impressive strikes for the judges. And I think that's why they're getting these nods.
Yeah, and don't underestimate the oohs and ahs from the crowd and the announcers and the corners when you get those huge pops. So good stuff looking at power fighters.
With her yells, or Chicadian when she yells. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. It's like, whoa.
That's so true.
You know, like,
even if they're not landing.
Like,
even if they're not landing. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
All right. What did I learn? Live betting. Boy, this could be a blessing and a curse. I only live bet one sport, that is UFC. We did this test a while ago. My good friend Corbin was at the London pay-per-view event, and so we were trying to figure out how far behind are we compared to the live. And so I wanted to know what the live lines were. So I had him call me when he was actually at the event and we were comparing lines and rounds and how far we were behind. And when you're watching pay-per-view or you're on ESPN Plus, you are 30 to 45 seconds behind what is actually happening in the fight. So when you're making a live bet, just know that the fight is 30 seconds ahead of what you're betting.
Okay.
So I have decided I'm only going to be betting in between rounds. So how can, live betting be a curse? Well, at the end of round one, I thought Josh Fremd was looking great against Tresean Gore. I thought Tresean Gore was getting ready to tire. So you could have made a live bet, and then you watched Tresean Gore about rip Josh Fremd's head off in one of the weirdest headlock and chokeouts ever.
Yes.
You could have gotten cursed if you live bet Dustin Jacoby because, Matt, like you were talking about, he was landing more shots. They just weren't always as effective. Roundtree was big-time plus money in the third round. So you could have, done that. Now, how can it be a blessing? Well, I was able to squeeze in one live bet on Dolidze when I saw that Phil Hawes got his knee hurt, and I was able to cash that. And there was one lowly poor book that accidentally left up the Arnold Allen live line in between rounds. And now it was minus 650. It was minus 650. I do not condone laying minus 650. However, I unloaded just about every penny I had in that book. Barely got the live bet in, and it was a glorious cash. So they could be blessings, they could be curses, but I will say of all the sports that I look at, it's the only one that I will take a shot at live betting. But to do it, I will only do it in between rounds because I've learned my lesson about how far ahead the fight is compared to where the live lines are. So I think UFC is a live betting sport. It's one of the only ones I would recommend. And I keep an eye on those injuries. But you always got to be on top of it. That's the thing. You have to be logged in, ready to go to hit that submit button because those lines will come down. So live betting, blessing and a curse. All right, guys, we've got UFC Fight Night, Rodriguez and Lemos. Let's break down the main event. Matt, I'm going to come to you first. This is 5 rounds, so this is probably a pretty good indicator of a future championship. Matt, not these two, but whoever wins is going to be looking at a title shot. So what do you see from Rodriguez and Lemos? How do you see this one playing out?
Yeah, so for one, I think this is going to be a really fun female fight with two strikers that, strike in a variety of ways. They tend to like to stay standing up. And Amanda Lemos actually does have some power behind those punches as well. She has knocked out people in the past. So I think this is going to be an exciting female fight. Marina Rodriguez comes into this bout with a 16-1 record with some impressive victories over Mackenzie Dern, Michelle Watterson, Amanda Ribas, and Jan. Don't know how to say the last name, so we'll roll with that. And again, impressive victories, no doubt, but all but one are by decision. So if Marina Rodriguez takes this bout, which I do lean Rodriguez here, I think she would be by decision. As for Amanda, she comes into this bout with a 12-2 record with wins over Michelle Watterson, Angela Hill, and Montserrat Ruiz. Amanda Lemos, again, she has some solid victories. I think she's a plus 180 underdog because she has been a slow starter in the past. And she kind of had a controversial victory over Angela Hill. And in some of those past bouts, she actually was outstruck. Again, in this fight, I do favor Marina Rodriguez. But you have to respect Amanda Lemos and her power. I think Marina Rodriguez does a good job with the pressure here, her variety of strikes, kind of smothering Lemos with her variety of striking and constant forward pressure. She also has very good movement with her feet, in and out movement, staying away, things of that nature. So again, I like Rodriguez here. I think this is a very solid setup for her, a fight that's going to predominantly stay standing. Again, in the past, Lemos has been outstruck. But with Lemos, in comparison to those other female fighters, she has that power that a lot of other females do not. So I think that's something that Rodriguez needs to understand coming into this bout. I do think the line should be a little closer than it appears, but for me, I'm still going Rodriguez here. Rodriguez by points is plus 165, so that's where I would lean with her. And if you do like Lemos, that double chance with submission or KO, TKO is currently plus 275, so you do get some good value there. Amanda is a dangerous striker. Again, a lot of power in those punches. But for me, I definitely lean Rodriguez here. She has the better foot movement. She has the better pressure. And she has a variety of strikes in a number of different ways. So for me, I'm Rodriguez. And again, I think it's a nod to a championship when she wins this.
Kyle, one of our favorites, Miranda Maverick, is fighting. I'll be wearing the Miranda Maverick T-shirt for sure this weekend. But what do you got for us for Rodriguez and Lemos in the main event?
Yeah, I mean, definitely Matt touched on a lot of the points that pretty much I'm agreeing upon, really. I mean, and obviously the striking, you've got, they're very different. They both are strikers, but they're very different. Rodriguez, she's going to have that volume. She's going to keep pushing forward. She's going to have mixing up those combinations, aiming different parts of the body. She'll go to the legs, the body, the head. A lot of times strikers, they're just head hunting. She really mixes it up very well. I think her footwork is great too. So those are some of the things that she does very well. And even, Lemos, she's got the big one punch. And that's something that maybe she doesn't put you away, but she can change the momentum with one shot. She can definitely land one big shot, club and sub you, look to do that. That's definitely some of the things that she does very well. I don't really see much grappling here. I think if there is any grappling, probably going to be Amanda looking for the takedowns, muscling her way down. I think she has that strength advantage. I think she could utilize that to get the fight to the ground. But the one thing that I like that Marina does exceptionally well is she's got really high-level Muay Thai, and she is really good, especially when they're in the smaller cage. She's very good at kind of framing her opponent off, throwing these short elbows, throwing these knees in the clinch. These are things that are very difficult to kind of defend against, and they're really can pile up a lot of damage overall. But I think the biggest difference maker in this fight is really going to be the cardio. And I think that is something that Marina really has weaponized over her last few fights, really, that she has really been able to kind of utilize that. And you've got Lemos, who early, she does have issues where, or no, she doesn't have issues early, where she's looking to land the big shots. She can really put on, 100% in her shots. And that sometimes can be a cardio, I think, maybe mismanagement a little bit, where she's just looking to go, 0 to 60. She's putting everything into it, and that's going to slow her down over time. While Marina Rodriguez, she really gets stronger as the fight goes on. She, can maybe be even against Dern. She looked a little iffy early, and then she just kept the pace going, kept pushing forward. And I think Marina's more built for 5 rounds. She's really, starting to get to that level. And Andy, to your point, now we're in the 5-round territory. Marina's been there, and this is really where you're taking that next step up in your career overall. So I think that early it could be, Lemos looking to land some shots, and I think that she has the upside to land something and get that finish. But I think that Marina's footwork, I think she knows that this is such an important fight for her that she's not going to stand and have a gunfight in the middle of the ring. She's going to do the same thing she's done, staying on the outside. Her scrambling has done a lot better as well, too. And out of Marina's last 12 bouts, 10 went to the scorecards. So she's not somebody that's getting finished or looking to finish. She's going to look to kind of drag this one out a little bit further. So I like exactly what Matt said. I like Rodriguez via points here, anywhere from plus 150, plus 165. I think is a good number on the most likely path. I think she chips away over the scorecards, over 5 rounds, and gets the victory.
Yeah, I honestly don't have anything else to add. I think the biggest thing going against Lemos is 5 rounds. I just don't see, unless she gets an early finish, that it goes much different. So I don't need to double up on everything that you guys said. I think you guys broke it down perfectly. I'm with you. Rodriguez, as the fight goes on, really good point fighter, great speed. Lemos just not enough cardio and not enough volume to get it done. So there's your main event breakdown on Rodriguez versus Lemos. Gentlemen, we are going to go to fights to watch. These are fights that we're excited to watch because we think we've got a good betting opportunity. It's a good stylistic match. Kyle, coming to you first. Let's talk Grant Dawson and Mark Madsen. Just in my inner circle, there's a lot of disdain for Mark Madsen just because of the style of fight that he has. I don't quite get it. But,
I hate Bilal Muhammad. I hate Marab. I hate him too. I hate them all. I hate him. I want it to be known that I don't like those guys. I don't. They killed me with Aldo. That whole thing held him up against the cage. I don't want to get started on it, but yes, I agree with you, Andy.
Well, let's go. Take it away. Grant Dawson, Mark Madsen, fights to watch. Why'd you pick this one?
Well, I think this one, the biggest reason why is that you've got him. He's undefeated. Both of these guys have great records. I think Grant has, 1 loss. Both of them are undefeated in the UFC. You've got, Madsen, who is a kind of guy that, he does delay and pray. He does do that, but he is a silver medalist, Greco-Roman wrestler. I guess on paper, he is one of the more, more achievable, wrestlers in the organization. I think you can give him that at least. But he's got a lot of flaws, and there's a lot of things that he doesn't do well. And one of them is also, we just kind of talked about in the other fight with cardio. Cardio is a massive issue, especially if you're going to be a wrestler. You have to be able to fuel those. You have to be able to push forward. You have to be able to get the takedowns, keep going. He can maybe do that early, but what Grant does pretty well is he's a good grappler, man. I mean, I don't think he's going to out-wrestle Madsen. I don't think he's going to be able to do that, but I think he's more physical. I think he's maybe got some of the better striking. I mean, maybe the better striking. And I think it kind of stylistically makes an interesting matchup just because both of these guys, I think if whoever gets this win here, it will push them up a little bit. These aren't the 2 sexiest names in the UFC, but it will push them up a little bit there. And you look at what, Madsen is 38 years old. You've got Grant, who is 28, that kind of spread in age, I think it's like 70-something% betting on the younger guy over like 10 year, and when it's a 10-year spread between them too. But I don't think that Madsen's going to be able to really wet blanket him, keep him down. I really think that, you're going to see early that first round, and we just talked about live betting. I think this is another live betting opportunity where Madsen could look good early. He could utilize the wrestling, push him up against the fence, maybe chip away and find a way to win that first round. But everything's going to go downhill, I believe, after that. And I think that's where you're going to start to see Grant starting to take control of the action, take control of the grappling. This is even a situation where I think that there's a live opportunity for a submission in that third round for Grant. I think that he gets tired, Madsen, and he finds a submission and can get that finish. But I actually do like getting off the big number. I do have a play that I do like here, and it's going to be Grant Dawson to win via points. It's plus 130. I think it's a good number here. Again, I think it's going to be sloppy in certain spots. I think that, Madsen could look good early, but I think, again, the next two rounds will be Grant, and I do like the plus money getting off the minus 225.
Grant Dawson versus Mark Madsen. The fans will be in a fury for sure when all the Dawsonites and the Madsen and the Madsen fans will be tuning in.
The Greco-Roman wrestlers are going to be like, "This is our time.
This is it. Yeah, this is it." All right. Well, I am excited to watch Mario Bautista and Benito Lopez. So a few weeks ago, on my what did we learn? I said we learned we need to bet against photographers that are in UFC fights. And so this Saturday, I would like to bet against a realtor who is in a professional fight. If we could pull up Benito Lopez's Instagram post, this is real. This is from this summer. Benito Lopez put out on Instagram that his new business cards for his realty company have just come in. So if you have a house that you're wanting to buy or sell, contact him. Look at him. This is a few months before he's going to get into a ring. He hasn't fought in 3 years. He's fighting Mario Bautista, who's won 2 in a row. I'm just going to go out on a limb and say Lopez's head is not 100% in this. His body is probably not 100% in this. His last fight was against Vince Morales in 2019. He looked good. He had good speed. He had good cardio, but that was 3 years ago. Mario Bautista, I've cashed his last 2 fights. He beat Jay Perrin by decision. There was a lot of grappling, a lot of cardio. He did great in that fight. And then his last fight against Kelleher, he had a beautiful submission in round 1. They went to the ground. He just did a beautiful move to get full mount, flip Kelleher over, and got the choke out. Both of these fights that he won were this year. So I get a guy who is a full-time UFC fighter who has fought 5 times since Benito Lopez's last fight, and he's going up against a guy who just got new realty business cards. Listen, I know he's minus 300. He's going to be in a parlay of some sort. Always bet on the full-time fighter going up against the part-time guy who just got his new business cards in. So that is the fight that I am interested in watching. Matt, coming to you, you've got Neil Magny and Daniel Rodriguez. Yeah, this is a great one. This is a really, really good one to watch. So what do you like about Magny and Rodriguez?
Yeah, Andy, I think that's a great find by you. And I also chose this fight because I think I found something that's been going on in camp that a lot of people might not know about. But with the fight, Neil Magny, Daniel Rodriguez, Neil Magny is a very well-rounded fighter and often a very underrated fighter. Magny is coming off a loss to Shavkat Rakhmonov, where he lost in a submission to the second round. But if you actually go back and look at Neil Magny's fights, a lot of those losses came because he was out-wrestled. That's probably not something Daniel Rodriguez is going to do. Daniel Rodriguez is coming off that somewhat questionable win over Li Jingliang, and is more of a stand and strike style fighter. He likes to rely on his boxing. And when looking at this fight, I personally do believe Neil Magny is the more well-rounded fighter. Neil Magny can stand up and strike, and he does mix in his takedowns from time to time. In addition to that, Magny is taller, 6'3" to Daniel Rodriguez, 6'1". And one key glaring thing that I see is that Neil Magny has a 6-inch reach advantage over Daniel Rodriguez. with Daniel Rodriguez and his primary style of fighting being his boxing, I'm kind of wondering what that 6-inch reach advantage is going to do for him. Can Magny keep him away with the jab? Again, 6 inches is a good amount of distance right there. And, in addition of comparing the two in terms of grappling, Magny averages 2.31 takedowns per fight with 40% accuracy, and D-Rod does have 73% takedown defense, but when you go and take a deep dive into his past fights, a lot of those fights were kind of striker-style matchups. When he had gone against people who can take him or who have takedown ability, he has been taken down. So I do think Neil Magny, again, has the ability to do that. And then one last piece that I'm kind of eyeing here happened in camp. Daniel Rodriguez had a staph infection in camp. When you have a staph infection in camp, you can't train. Maybe you can go and run and stuff like that, but you're not sparring. You're not going against opponents or anything along those lines. So because of that, I actually think Neil Magny has somewhat of an advantage going into this camp. Neil Magny has the better track record in beating people like Jeff Neal, who he's been making a run as of late. Daniel Rodriguez also has beaten some impressive fighters, but I just don't believe they're up to the caliber of Magny. And for me, I like to go with the fighters who tend to have the more paths to victory. I believe that's Magny here. And then in addition to that, as the rounds go on, Rodriguez has, in the past, been able to rely on his gas tank, pressuring people with his boxing. With Magny, I'm just not sure. With that staph infection, is his cardio going to be the same? Is he going to be able to pressure with that 6-inch reach, with the height advantage for Magny on top of that? So because of that, I do like Magny here in what is near a pick'em style fight.
Well, Alir Latifi would disagree with you that you can't do anything with a staph infection. Whatever. You can go through full camp, you can go through a fight, and you can lie about it every step of the way. Tell anybody about that stuff, especially your coaches.
Yeah. Keep it quiet.
Mr. Bubbles has a question in the chat room, gentlemen. The barn burner, Parisian, Chase Sherman. Bubbles wants to know, do we like under 2.5 rounds? Is this going to be one of those fight that features two heavyweights just going for knockouts, or is this going to be one of those middling, bumbling around wrestle fest? Kyle, any opinions? Parisian and Sherman under 2.5 rounds?
I would probably take that under there. I probably would like that. I think there's going to be same thing you're saying. It's going to be moments of sloppiness. There's going to be moments of why did I even bet this fight? But I think the under is going to be in there. I think someone's going to end up clipping somebody, and then it's going to be a sloppiness on the ground. But I think that the under, I would lean towards that way.
Matt, you taking under? Or you like this one to go the distance?
No, I'm the same exact way as Kyle. I would take the under here. Going off Chase Sherman's past fights, I believe his last 3 or 4 have all gone inside the distance here. He's someone who tends to kind of blow the gas tank early, fade. A lot of heavyweights tend to do that as well, and then that leaves the finish open. So I would also be with the finish under the 2.5 rounds.
Make it a clean sweep. I can't see this one going the distance. If one guy gets popped, one clean shot gets landed, they're going for the finish for sure. So, all right, we are going to take a look at a parlay buster, a fight to go the distance, and a heads up or money line. That is Matt Kowalis at sportsmemo.com. He's got his UFC best bet up right now. Sportsmemo.com. He's going to add 1 or 2 more plays before the event on Saturday. Kyle has his 4% best bet pack that is up right now at WagerTalk.com. I have 1 play and 1 play only, going all in. Not all in. We don't do all ins, but you know what I mean. I'm going in on 1 play this week. That's at WagerTalk.com. Let's talk Parlay Buster. This is a play that this is Matt's call this week. So, Matt, we're looking at a play that you think people are going to eagerly run and put in their parlays, and you're a little bit nervous about it. You would caution people a little bit. So who you got for this week's Parlay Buster?
Yeah, so for this week's Parlay Buster, I have Derek Minner against Shai Nerdenbeek, and Shai Nerdenbeek would be my Parlay Buster in this bout. And for me, a lot of it does come down to the fact that, this is only his 3rd UFC fight. He's 2-1 in his UFC career. And Derek Minner is kind of fighting for his UFC life. If he loses this fight, he could be out of the UFC. Derek Minner is 26-13 throughout his UFC career and is 2-3 in the UFC, losing 2 fights in a row. Again, if he loses this fight, this could be his UFC career. As for Shai Nerdenbeek, 37-10 throughout his pro fighting career and is on a 2-fight win streak streak, lost his first fight when he came into the UFC, kind of gave him a softball in his second bout, and then his third fight was a very close matchup. For Minner, his last fight was against Ryan Hall, and that looked absolutely brutal. He showed a lot of poor fight IQ, just accepting positions, and I would assume with his fight, essentially with his UFC career on the line, that he's going to learn from the past and come in with a better strategy against Shea. You know, another thing, too, is Shea Nerdenbeek likes to try and get takedowns. He's also a solid striker, but his striking can leave him susceptible to takedowns, and that's where Minner wants to take the fight. You know, in Minner's fighting career, he actually has 22 submissions. So he's a submission artist. He wants to be in those positions. And once again, when fighting a fighter in Nerdenbeek or Shea who is newer to the UFC, only 2-1, not a ton of experience, I feel like there is a possibility that he could leave himself susceptible to some sort of submission or gets a little too aggressive with his striking, leaving that takedown open for Minner, leaving him that top position. And that's exactly where Darrick Minner wants to be. He wants to be in that top position, controlling that fight. And once he's there, he is very tough to get off. You know, again, going back to the fact that Minner is a fighter with his back against the wall, going against an inexperienced fighter who's more new to the UFC. I just like Minner here. I'm not taking him outright or taking him in a pick. I just do think he is potentially a live dog with his submission ability. He's not much of a striker either. A lot of this does come down to the grappling, if he can get Shea to the ground and things like that. But with him being such an inexperienced fighter, might get a little too aggressive with his striking. I think Minner could get a takedown, take advantage, and get that top position. Then again, if Shea does go for a takedown, I think he could leave himself susceptible to some sort of submission from Minner, who's very experienced and has ways to finish fights. So I do think Minner could be a live dog here, and I would be weary of putting Shea in your parlays.
Great breakdown as why that could be a tough one to put in your parlays and why it could be a parlay buster. And we don't talk about what our bets and picks are. So, Kyle, interesting fight you picked on the distance. So talk about the fight that you identified as breaking down just strictly on the distance. Will it go the distance or not go the distance?
Yeah, so I have the same fight on the parlay buster that Matt just talked about. So some of these things I'm not going to talk about, but I think this is actually a really good spot for the under. You have the under right now. It's 1.5 plus 150. I think is a pretty damn good number. And you look at these two guys. Both these guys are kind of, to Matt's point a little bit there, was they're kind of kill or be killed kind of fighters. And if you look at Minner, he's got 26 professional wins, 23 finishes professionally, 22 were by submission that Matt just talked about. Then you've got 13 losses, 11 times he was finished. And then you look at Nerdenbeck on the other side, 37 wins, 27 finishes. He's got 10 losses, 8 by finish. I mean, these guys are, they're not getting paid hourly. They're looking to go out there and they're looking to push forward, land the shot, or get the submission and pretty much do that. And when you're looking at the unders just in general, I mean, the mix that you're looking for really is the willingness of two guys to just go at it regardless. And then a lot of inefficiencies with their striking, with their defense. You want those inefficiencies because that opens up windows to land, to get takedowns, to take control of the bottom. I mean, both these guys are decent strikers at best, iffy, deep striking defense. They can be sloppy at certain times, but they're both absolutely willing to go forward, push forward, look for these takedowns. And I think the strength advantage a little bit for Nerdenbeck is going to look for some of these takedowns, but Minner's going to be okay with that. He's going to be fine with it. And the other thing that he does very well, Minner, is that he's always submission hunting. I mean, it doesn't even matter. He goes, same thing, 0 to 100. He goes right away. He shoots out there right away. He's looking for the takedowns. He's going there, and then he really tails off going into that second round early. So both of these guys, I think, are going to be going right in there, looking for opportunities to get the finish early in that first round. So at a big plus number, at a nice sizable plus number of plus 150 on under 1.5, I think is a good spot for these two guys. And I think that, you know, Minner just does not care. He will go in there and he's going to shoot for it. So I think it's a really good spot to get some plus money.
Great stuff. I mean, there's two great breakdowns on how to bet on that fight on two different ways. I am going to.
Say something?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, real quick, I forgot to add one last point. With this fight, once again, with Derek Minner and Shea Nerdenbeek, Nerdenbeek's last fight was against TJ Ford, whose coach is James Crouch. James Crouch is also the same coach for Derek Minner. So that's one thing I wanted to point out as well. So I would think, James Crouch is kind of known as this fighter mastermind. I would think that he has a very good understanding after that last fight from Shea Nerdenbeek and TJ Ford. So he knows exactly how to game plan for him in this upcoming bout with Derek Minner. So that's just one thing I wanted to add, because James Crouch is one of the better fighter coaches throughout the UFC.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice. Yeah, great point. I'm going to break down my fight. We did have a question about Nate Manez plus 175 over Tajir. I'll break down my fight, and we'll wrap up the show talking about that one if you guys want to look up that fight and give me your thoughts. All right. So I'm going to take a look at a pretty obscure one here. Ramona Pasqual versus Tamiris Vidal. And this is a fight that is definitely minus 200 or less. And I'm telling you right now, I am all over the underdog in this one. Yes, that's right. I am going to be taking Ramona Pasqual at plus money. She's around plus 120 right now. She opened up around plus 135. So the line's already moving. So a couple things. I will start with Pasqual, who is 0-2. When I first saw the fight, I was like, oh, great. We get to bet against Ramona Pasqual again. And then I went and looked at her 2 losses. Not terrible losses. Her first fight was against Josiane Nunez, who is 9-1 and has won both of her UFC fights. If you don't remember Nunez, she's really short and just throws with she has cannons for punches. So there's no shame, and there was really no shame in that loss. And then her fight against Jocelyn Edwards, I went back and watched it, and it was just way more competitive than I thought. Pasqual showed really good knees in the clinch. She did really good damage on Edwards. I mean, she busted up Edwards' nose. It was 30-27, 29-28, 29-28, and Edwards just had the good reach. She had some fantastic body kicks and some front kicks, and she just kind of controlled the pace a little bit. But I went back and watched it. Pasqual was in that fight every step of the way. And I read an article with Pasqual saying how just disappointed she was with that last fight, and how, she thought she was winning, but she wasn't, and how her and her coaches have really made an adjustment about how, she has to be a point fighter, but here's how you win as a point fighter. You can't let Jocelyn Edwards land 4 shots in a row to your 2. You have to control the pace. You can't let the opponents come towards you and give the illusion that you're the one taking the most damage. So she said for a month she was just devastated, but she's made some really big changes. She feels great coming into this fight. And when I went and looked at the film of Tamiris Vidal, not impressive. So I will start with her record, which is 6-1, but I will tell you she got a win against Aline Perez, who I love. And Aline Perez won that fight, but got disqualified because of an illegal knee right at the end. Vidal was done and out and getting ground and pounded, and there was just a knee at the end. So she gets a very strange win. Her last win was against Braga, and that was another kind of out of nowhere win. She got a takedown in the second round. Braga turned the wrong way and ended up in this weird heel hook. Braga tapped real quick. It wasn't impressive. I can tell you, here's what Vidal is going to do. She's going to throw a couple of wild, crazy overhand rights that are going to miss by a mile. She's going to try and push Pasqual up against the fence and not do any damage. And then she's going to try and do takedowns. And I think Pasqual is too strong for her, and I think Pasqual is too good for her in the clinch. Vidal has horrible stand-up striking technique. It's bad. Pasqual is light years ahead of her in terms of the striking and in terms of the stance and the movement. And Pasqual has much better cardio. Vidal's cardio is non-existent. She pushes fighters up against the fence, and she's able to do that at the lower level. She's not going to be able to do that here. This is the completely wrong fighter is favored. These lines should be completely flipped. Do not be surprised if Ramona Pasqual has Vidal huffing and puffing in rounds 2 and 3, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if Vidal gets finished in round 3 just because she's so tired. She's going to have to try and go for the finish. Pasqual is not going to go for it. This is a great chance to take an underdog here on someone that is 0-2 in the UFC. I think she gets her first win here. So that's my breakdown of Ramona Pasqual and Tamiris Vidal. Gentlemen, what do you think here? Kyle, you got any thoughts on Nate Maness at plus 175? I got to say, I was going to bet against Nate Maness, and I watched the film, and I decided against it. I think he's a little bit of a live dog here.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with you. I mean, I'm not sold on Tagir. I'm not very much sold on him. I mean, Nascimento win, I guess, is okay. And and he beat, Silva, not bad. But this, to me, I mean, it's kind of a fight where I have anything I'm looking at this fight. But if you had to, I would go dog or pass here. I mean, I don't think that it's worth at all the price that Tagir has. He's, you're paying that, the tax on his last name, which helps, push that number to a favorite a little bit. But if I had to pick, I would go Maness and take the plus money.
Matt, any thoughts on Maness and Tagir?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat here. I'm not exactly sure where to go in this fight. Maness did beat Tony Gravely, so he's obviously a pretty solid striker. He can stop some takedowns, things of that nature. And then you look at, Tagir. And Tagir's more of a wrestling style. So, Maness did just lose to Nurmagomedov or whatever. So, and anytime, I'm not going to lie, anytime I see those last names, I'm kind of like, ooh, I don't know. Those are usually wrestling style guys. They're going to take you down. They're going to smother you. It's going to be probably pretty boring. So, yeah, I'm gonna lay off on that, but doesn't mean they can't get caught. You know what I mean? Maness obviously is a pretty solid striker. This isn't one I did a deep dive in, so I don't know a ton about it. But, yeah, for me, it would be dog or pass as well.
All right, guys, great stuff. Let's do a quick little recap on our Parlay Buster, our distance fight, and our money line fight. Matt is looking at being a little bit nervous here on Shilan Nerdembecka against Derek Minner. People putting in the parlay is real nervous about that. Kyle's looking at the under in the exact same fight, so looking for a finish in that. And I like the underdog of Ramona Pasqual to get what the books would decide an upset. I don't think it's going to be an upset at all, so grab that at plus money. So, gentlemen, thank you so much. You can find Matt Kowalis at sportsmemo.com. He's got his best bet up. A couple more plays going to be added before the fight. Kyle's got his 4% pack up at WagerTalk.com. Look for that. There's a couple plays in there, and looking to cash on Saturday. I've got one play and one play only. That's up at WagerTalk.com. Gentlemen, let's make this a profitable event. Unfortunately, we don't get to add Almeida into any of our parlays, which is a bummer. We gotta wait till January.
When does he call your fight again? When does he fight? I'm dying to see this man fight.
They got him against Shamil. They're gonna put him up against Shamil. They're gonna
that sounds try, right. That sounds about right. That sounds right about
us again in January. Oh, amazing. So thanks, everybody, for joining. Give us a like. Give us the thumbs up. Hit the bell in the corner. Let's make it a profitable fight night, guys. We'll see everyone next week on Inside the Distance. Thanks.
Ready to take your favorite WagerTalk handicappers wherever you travel this football season? The WagerTalk TV app is now live for phones, tablets, smart TVs, and streaming platforms. Tune into your favorite shows like WagerTalk Today, Bet on It, and the Opening Line Report. Plus, browse through our extensive library of sports betting tips. Create your personal playlist of betting tip videos to help you prepare for the upcoming season, and set notifications to alert you when new content is added. Download the app for Apple, Android, Amazon, and Roku devices by searching for WagerTalk TV, or scan the QR code on your screen to join the winning conversation today.